Good evening, and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this evening. Just make sure everything's working fine before we head on. I'm just going to double check one more thing. I believe that there is a game going on tonight. No surrender, this is our city. The Sevconians have put out a tiffle tonight, and that is it. No surrender, this is our city. Which part of this is our city? Did they not realise that Celtic have been dominant in Glasgow for the best part of 20 odd years? Good evening, Mikey boy. How are you this evening? I am going to keep an eye on the other game that is on tonight. There has been one other game postponed in the SPFL this evening, and I will just keep tabs on it. Keep tabs what's going on. Let me just refresh this because there we go. Perfect. Anyway, Celtic and West Ham and Forest are playing. Yeah, they are that. This is very true. There is a bit of transfer talk going around this evening. One of the players, we all know who he is, Jocelin Tabai. Is a player that's been linked with Celtic in a £2 million deal, but it is also been alleged that Celtic are in the process of bringing in another winger and a player that can play centre midfield also, which is a strange one because it would suggest that Celtic are preparing themselves. No matter what Martin O'Neill said today, it says that Celtic may be preparing themselves for life without Dyson Maeda. And even Campervan CSC now in Spain. Hey, you're at -7 tonight. Jesus. Just over the Pyrenees, I take it. Fair play to you. How far are you coming down, Ian? How far are you coming down? Are you coming all the way down to the warm part of Spain, the Costa del Sol, or are you staying up in the cold bit? There's loads of motorhomes down here, by the way. There is loads of motorhomes. If you're on Facebook, give me a shout on Facebook, and I'll tell you where there's loads of places you can park motorhomes up for free. But there's also plenty of sites as well down here, not far from where I am. Anyway, Celtic are being linked with another winger that can play attacking midfield. He can play as a right winger, which is his main position, and he can play as a left winger. What does it say about the players that are there? It doesn't give me much confidence that we're going to retain Yang. You got to remember that Yang did want away. I mean, what if we lose Daiz Maeda in this window? What if we lose Yang in this window? And what if we lose Rio Hitati? Do you know, South American joining in the winter? That's fine. It's just more South Americans that needed to be added just to get them going with this team. And the fact that the other player that we're signing as well is also in a similar position. Are we about to sign two players that can play the same positions? It does tell me that there's potential. Yeah, there's loads of motorhome down that way, Joseph. Loads of motorhome space. But when you look at it, it's two similar players. I'm not going to get excited about it because Celtic under Martin O'Neill will have to go out and add additions to the squad. People are saying that we need to go out and spend 5, 10 million. Celtic aren't going to do that. I think that when you look at the players that we've spent 9 million on, Adam Ida, we sold him at a loss. When we brought in our 11 million man, has he been worth it? No. I think that Celtic will definitely go out and bring in squad players at the 2 million mark, like these players are, to try and see if they can make them better and pass them on. And if it works, clogging up the B roads when you're on wheels. Not a chance. So main roads down here and motorway, mate. It's no B roads. But anyway, look at the fact that if Celtic are going to bring this 26-year-old Ignacio, another Ignacio, just spelled a little bit differently, 26-year-old Uruguayan attack and right winger, valued currently at around about £2 million. This is a bit strange, but we've not had great success with South Americans recently. Recently. Will this be the first two signings under the Martin O'Neill era? It does look like Celtic are just hedging their bets on this one, having players ready to come in the off chance that we are about to lose Dice Maeda, Yang, and I also think maybe even Rio Hatate. Tell me your thoughts in the comments section. Soon be full of Russian tanks if we carry on like this. Not a chance. Spain won't be touched by Russian tanks. Crazy. Balak Wisha, the fake footballer, need a striker. Also being linked to any available striker. Yeah, we're going to get linked to every striker going over the next couple of weeks. Surely you should be looking closer to home for signings for UK, even Scotland. Well, Martin O'Neill did say that he is going to have to go and watch players personally. He did say that in his interview today, that he will need to look at players, which means I think you might see him turning up at a Hibs game, depending on when the Hibs games are. If they seriously, has that just crashed? It's always the same when I try and watch them. Don't tell me that Camel Live has just crashed after the game started. Yep. Unbelievable. Who cares? Don't want to watch it anyway. Stream 2. I'm not fussy about them. Find out later. Whatever happens. So, with Martin O'Neill saying that he's emphasised that we are desperate for new recruits as we look to breathe some fresh air into the struggling Celtic side. He said, whilst he's Dice Maeda is an important player, he's not too sure whether he's going to be here. 73-year-old returned and had his first press conference today after initially stepping in with Brendan Rodgers, left the club. Paul Tisdale has left. Sean Maloney has stood in and came back to the club. Well, he didn't leave the club, did he? But the fact is that Martin O'Neill says that after Celtic were criticised after a poor summer transfer window, which played a significant part in Brendan Rodgers leaving the club, Martin O'Neill says he expects it to be busy. If the board were to listen to me, I would have around about 56 players. So I'll try and narrow it down. I think that you'd be aware of what positions we need to strengthen and what we're going to try and do. It's a very difficult window, says Martin O'Neill, in terms of buying players. That will be difficult, but we do need to supplement the squad. Supplement the squad, to me, is getting in squad players. That's what that is. It's just getting in squad players because we are low on the ground when it comes to player. Keeping Dice Maeda, who was close to moving to Wolfsburg as he let it slip, has been touted, and I think a lot of people have said that Dice Maeda would leave. Wilfred Nancy says no, he hopes he stays. It was alleged that his agent said he hopes he stays and he wants to move after the World Cup. Martin O'Neill says, ask me again on Friday once I've spoken to the player's agent, more importantly. And I think that that's the nice thing about having Martin O'Neill back. That when Martin O'Neill comes in, and he just tells you as it is. Do you know, you've never heard a manager before saying, well, wait till I speak to the agent. It's Brendan Rodgers was like, well, that's nothing to do with me. That's the guys upstairs that do that. I just tell them I want the player. It's where Martin O'Neill said, wait till I have spoken to the agent. That's good man management. It's not passing the buck. Yes, Tisdale's left. Yes, Martin O'Neill is here until the summer only, till the end of May. But it's good that he's getting that involved in the club. Long term, we need a manager that can come in and do the exact same. A manager that will speak to agents. A manager that will speak to players. Because ultimately, it's the agent that says, yeah, we've got this deal. It would have been the agent that told Dice Maeda, yep, there's a chance that you're going to go to Wolfsburg. Empty your locker. I think it'll go through tonight. It didn't go through. Dyson goes back into training the next day. This goes on for 4 days. For whatever reason, the player didn't look happy at the start of the season. Now we know why. There was speculation that he'd emptied his locker, but people were saying, it's just the player. He's just emptying his locker, hoping for it. Well, Martin O'Neill confirmed that, you know what, he was going to Wolfsburg, but it completely fell through. Neither striker were also being linked with anyone available. Let me just run some through. South Americans don't work in Scottish football. I think that that's a lie. Emilio Izaguirre. Emilio Izaguirre. Definitely. Definitely. Use your clout and get a striker now, please. I wish. Told you a long time that Engels wasn't worth that money, but people said you should get off his back. He's only in his 20s. Yeah, he is only in his 20s, and I think that we will still sell him on for a big profit. He's only 21. If he had came, I'm not going over old ground, Jim. Come on, let's move on. I thought the positivity was back into the chat. Martin O'Neill is the song, and are the Huns 1-0 down yet? Actually, no, I don't know, because that will still have. Oh, you're joking, kidding on, man. Fucking Huns have scored already. Rangers are above us. I am not staying on for an hour tonight. There is no frigging danger. Am I staying on for an hour when this lot go above us in the table? So there are 263 comments. I can only apologise. Because I'm not going to read all them when the zombies have now went in front of us in the league. We knew it would happen. We knew it would happen. Anyway, why not sign a striker? Mon Aberdeen. I'm leaving. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to jump straight to the end of the comments. Apologise. Jim, don't worry about it. Taylor's a bench warmer now. Taylor, Aberdeen are howling. Who cares? Martin O'Neill's back to win the league. Sean in the trainer session. This is the midfield I know. That tells a story of the last 33 days in itself. Yeah, I think that looking forward, I think that the Celtic team will be a completely different beast this weekend. When you look at the matches that are this weekend, Hibernian play Ranger. That's the zombies. Fucking who cares about those fuckers? It's just pissed me off. But we shall not get down, because we shall never be mastered by no dirty orange bastard. And let you fucking Huns cry. And you're all fair game now. Teams fixtures, one of the fixtures. When you look at the fixtures, there's 3 days, 18 hours, and 44 minutes until Celtic take on Dundee United. Now that we are into that game, we have a very, very different perspective on the look ahead for Celtic, because let's face it, there's not many Celtic fans who are looking forward to the potential prospect of Wilfred Nancy going into the game against Dundee United and Celtic getting any kind of result against Dundee United. At one point, there was going to be a massive protest. There has been nothing come out from the Celtic collective tonight. I think that the decision yesterday by the Celtic board would have completely caught the Celtic collective and put them on their back feet. I think that they would now have to regroup and think about the way forward. As fans, we were now looking at the Dundee United game as a game that we will win, and it will keep us up there in the fight for a second position. The game against Falkirk, it's always going to be a difficult going to Falkirk on a Wednesday night, but that will come down to a game that we will win. I think that the confidence will be there in the players and the staff, more importantly. And then the Auchinleck Talbot, I think that Martin O'Neill will use that to bleed in some of the new players that we will have in by the 18th of January, because the big one for Martin O'Neill, the massive one, is Bologna, heading to Italy. The scenes of so many fantastic games for Martin O'Neill over the years, heading back to Italy, will bring goosebumps to... don't tell me the score. Jesus, honestly. When you look at going to Italy with Martin O'Neill, there is so many fantastic memories. The big one that stands out is obviously the Juventus game back in the day. But football is a very different beast in the modern day. Football, Bologna, well, let's face it, a lot of people, I for one, still think that we'll get tanked, even with Martin O'Neill back at Celtic. I think at best we can get in Bologna, if we can play somehow the way that we played in Italy last season in the Champions League, where we managed a 0-0 draw. That would be a fantastic result, and Martin O'Neill would hail that as a fantastic result. Now, one of the things that Martin O'Neill did say this afternoon is the fact that the longer term players, the players that have been out injured, we all know who they are. The first one that may be back, according to Martin O'Neill, is Alistair Johnston at the end of March. So we can put it to bed that Jota will not be back in January. Jota will not be back in February. Martin O'Neill said that the first one that thinks he'll be back is Alistair Johnston, who thinks that he'll be back at the end of March. We need to go out and buy players. We need to go out and buy a couple of wingers. We need to go out and buy central midfield player. We need to go and buy defenders. We need to go out and buy a couple of strikers. This could be the window that we could spend up to £20 million. But you may find that we've brought in 5, 6, 7, 8 players by spending that £20 million. Now, a lot of people will say it's the wrong thing to do. But it's not. The way that the squad has been decimated. Brendan Rodgers, I want a smaller, nimble squad. Decimated. Completely decimated. Allowing players to be sold that should never allowed to be sold unless you've got someone in. The fact that Martin O'Neill, if he does go for both these players that can play in similar positions, it tells me that, we are just trying to fill the squad. And Martin O'Neill knows that we need to get the squad in. We need players that can come in and play in various positions. And if they turn out to be fantastic players, so be it. The reason that we're probably going for this 26-year-old, I mean, he is a Uruguayan player. Um, People will say that he should, at that age, he should have a good bit of experience, but he's still got his best years in front of him. If you're bringing someone in at that side, it's not really potential, is it? He should he should be pretty much established when it comes to playing football. But for Celtic fans that think that there's an unlimited pot of gold and the £77 million, we are not going to go out and spend £30 million on three players to come into the club. Martin O'Neill will know his budget. Martin O'Neill and Fozzie and Sean Maloney will know the positions they need, and they'll need to bring in players ultimately to just fill the squad. And that's where we're at. That's where we're at. Let me jump. Celtic 2-1 against United. I don't think that we'll concede. I don't think that we will concede against United. I think we're going to get a clean sheet. It's always difficult with Dundee United, but it is at Celtic Park. And we never got the new manager bounce before. We got the new manager bounce under Martin O'Neill, but it wasn't the new manager bounce. I'm expecting a big new manager bounce. A real one. You know, one that goes on and we go on a fantastic run. And then we get players coming in over the next couple of weeks. And it was good that Martin O'Neill said, look, the boy that's came in at right back, he's going to have to prove himself. He is here just on loan. He will need to prove himself, but it does give us options. And that is what has been needed. Hearts play St Mirren, same night we play Falkirk. That could be interesting, especially since the Livingston game against St Mirren today. I think it was Livingston today. We can only concentrate on ourselves, win every game under Martin O'Neill, and we cruise this league. Can we go on a run like that until the end of the season? That's the big one. That is the big one. Can we ultimately go on a run, that type of run, to the end of the season and win everything? I'm not too sure. It would be fantastic. But at least Martin O'Neill's been honest with us. At least Martin O'Neill is saying, look, we desperately need players in. We desperately need players to come in and help out the squad. Yes, we need squad players, but you also need players that can come in and push the first team. And like Martin O'Neill said today, if the players that come in are good, I'll take it was me that brought them in. But if they come in, pardon me, and they're bad, Martin O'Neill says, well, I'm going to blame Fozzie and young Sean. I'll pass the buck to them. But he said it funnily. Do you know, he was kind of being humorous about it, and the fact that he knows we need to win games of football, but we also need a squad. We need to rebuild the squad, and that's the worst thing about it. Trying to do it at this summer, we have no one else to blame apart from ourselves. If we go into third position, what do you mean? If we go, we are in third position. As it stands right now, Celtic are in third position. Rangers must have had a goal disallowed because it's only 1-0 I'm seeing. But here is the live Premier League table. It's not going to look good. So if you're of a nervous disposition, look away now. I've always wanted to say that on YouTube. Look away now. Celtic are third in the table. It's a little bit of a reality check that whilst it's all good under Martin O'Neill coming back to the club, and whilst it's all exciting, the fact that Martin O'Neill has came back to the club, this is the reality of the situation we're in. This is how, if God forsake that Motherwell win and we drop points against Dundee United this weekend, we could end up in fourth. We're in unfamiliar territory with 21 games in the season played. Normally, 21 games of the season, Celtic are starting to break forward. Do you know? We need to start scoring goals. When you look at the goal difference, Hearts, fair play to them. They've got a goal difference. They've scored 39 goals this season. Celtic have only scored 34. We need goal scorers in. We need Martin O'Neill and Fozzie to work their magic with everything. And maybe I don't know how you do that then. Why the notifications aren't working, mate. After watching Saturday's performance, twice hasn't the board met the SPFL some baffling decisions. Let's no worried about it. Inter beat them 3-1 the other day. Hopefully Martin can get some goals out of Johnny Kenny until we get a real striker in. The last manager to witness Clemson score against him was Norway's under-21 coach. Mrs. Pistis Nancy. Lorna Gallagher has become a member of the One Celtic Fans View. Welcome to the membership, Lorna. Jota won't be back this season. No, he won't. And there was a lot of fans and a lot of people online that said that they knew that Jota was coming back in February. They knew he was coming back in January and all this nonsense. You know, Martin O'Neill just tells us exactly how it is. Thankfully, and Alistair Johnston will be the first one back. Can I take that league table down now? Because hopefully. The upside is the Rangers have played one more game than us. So if Aberdeen can just find it within themselves to try and get a draw tonight at Ibrox, would be fantastic. But I'm not putting any bets on it because I expect Rangers to get a few decisions to go their way this evening. I am not expecting us to progress in the Europa League. Yes. I mean, we could look at the Europa table just to hit us a little bit of. When you look at the table, it doesn't look great for Celtic. When we look at the Europa table, it's been a disappointing season. When we do look at the Europa table, if you obviously look at Lyon are our first, Midtjylland, Aston Villa, Robbie Keane's team in sixth position, Braga, Porto, Stuttgart, Roma, Nottingham Forest, Fenerbahce, Bologna are in 13th, and their run in Europe is they've won 3 and drawn 2, and Celtic are away down in 24th position. Now Celtic could still, maybe, if we win one of our remaining 2 games. Brendan Rodgers said that we would need 10 points. Martin O'Neill said we would need 10 points. I think that the fact that we've got to 7, can we win the very last game against Utrecht? Can Martin O'Neill win that game to get us going forward? When you look at the fixtures, Bologna, I think that we'll be very lucky to retain anything from that. And then there's the Hearts game at the end of the month. That's a must-win game. That's a game that Martin O'Neill will be wanting to do some damage on Hearts. And then you've got Utrecht. Talk about a baptism of fire for Martin O'Neill. If you think that Wilfred Nancy had a hard first 6 weeks at Celtic, Martin O'Neill has got the rest of January, and it's make or break. He will know that We're in 3 competitions this month that we really need to try and win every single game. Can Celtic do it under Martin O'Neill? I tell you one thing, if Martin O'Neill was to get any kind of result, I'm talking a draw, if he can get a draw in Bologna, it would be up there with one of the greatest results ever. If we can beat Hearts away to Hearts, they've beat us twice already this season, you're thinking, do you know what? We've got a good title race on here. If we then get Utrecht back at Celtic Park, and Utrecht aren't doing that great, they're in 32nd place, just above the Rangers. You're thinking we should be beating them. We should be winning that game. Martin O'Neill will be thinking, and we need everyone back at Celtic Park for that game. We need everyone back at Celtic Park. That's a massive game that we need to be making as much noise as possible. If we win the Utrecht game, will that be enough to keep us in that top 24? Statistically, you're saying yes, it could be, but you just don't know. It's going to be tight. It is going to be tight. And it's not even as if it's a long way away, because it is the 6th of January already, and it's still 1-0 to that mob. So it is an important season, and it is an important month to Martin O'Neill in the realms of the season. Martin O'Neill will know that he wants to get off to a winner this weekend against Dundee United. Normally Dundee United at Celtic Park, it's always going to be a bit of a difficult game, but it's always a game that we get over the line. Let's just hope that the time that we get to the Bologna game, that we've built a bit of momentum within the squad. It gives Martin O'Neill 4 games to try out different players, especially the Auchinleck Talbot game. Do you know that's on the Sunday? We don't then play until the Thursday. It gives Martin O'Neill 3 games to try and get some players in to help the squad. Celtic really need to be getting some people in the door this week, because wait until the week after, you're hoping that the players that do come in then have been playing week in, week out, and that are fully up to scratch and that are fully fit and ready to just step onto the park at Celtic Park. But we need at least 2 strikers. Yeah, we do that. Our problems are easily sorted. They might be easily sorted, but it depends whether you can get players to come to the club. 5 players of quality needed. Kalechi won't be out until March, surely. They were saying the end of the month for him. According to Martin O'Neill, the ones that are out injured long term, none of them are going to be back anytime. Were you out for Three Kings Day? Yes, we went out for Three Kings Day is a holiday. There's nothing open. Nothing. No shops, nothing. Some restaurants are open, but a lot of restaurants were shut. But yeah, we were out. Spanish do it the other way round. They go out the night before a big holiday. So like on Christmas Eve, they have their big meal on Christmas Eve rather than Christmas Day. Three Kings, they have their big meal last night rather than today. Today's just a holiday. You just do nada. You go out for lunch. But yeah, no, it was good. It was good. My neighbours are sheep going nuts. That's half a team, Baz. Yes, it is half a team. But sick notes needs selling. A keeper, centre back, number 6, and 2 strikers. Do we need a keeper? Or are we doing Sinisalo an injustice? Because I think Sinisalo is a player that could still come good for Celtic. Definitely still comes good. Oh my God, I thought the boys would actually be back playing by March. No, Jim. At least Martin O'Neill's got the balls to tell us the truth. Brendan Rodgers would never talk about players that were out injured. It was a guessing game. Do you know? It was like, I don't know. Just don't ask me about them. Wilfred Nancy, he didn't know what time of day it was. Never mind when players were going to be back. I think he just said the first thing that came into his head. At least Martin O'Neill has went, look, I've asked about the players that are out injured. What's the timeline? They're not going to be back. Alistair Johnston's going to be the first one back at the end of March. And Martin O'Neill said, that's too late for me. I've not got until the end of March. I've got all these games that are coming up way before the end of March. I need players in now that can get us up the league to the next round of the Scottish Cup and to try and keep us in the Europa. Because Martin O'Neill will still fancy his chances. You've got to remember when Martin O'Neill took us to Seville in 2003, we got knocked out the Champions League. We didn't expect anything from Europa at the early stages. But as it progressed that season, and we started to see the teams that we could possibly play, we see that we got Blackburn. It was like, yes, we can beat Blackburn. We were confident. We were confident in Martin O'Neill and we were confident in the players. Martin O'Neill will he will want to try and relive that for one last chance. He will want to try and rectify the wrong that was done to him, he will see. And he will say to the board, I've got one chance here. One chance to try and get us to the later stages of Europe. And you know what can happen then. If we just get the luck of the draw, if we can get good players in, you know I can do it. That's enough motivation for any. Dermot Desmond just needs to go, do you know what? Give him what he wants. Give him what he wants. Would you give Martin O'Neill, would you go all in? You're sitting at a poker table. And if Martin O'Neill comes in and sits next to you, you give him the chips. Europa League, you go all in. You go all in. Because what if Martin O'Neill was to do the unthinkable and get us to the later stages of Europa? Now, the downside of it is the season that we got to the later stages of Europa in 2003 were actually, it was a bad season domestically. So maybe it's not all about, living in hope and going into some delirious fantasy land that Martin O'Neill could maybe take us to the later stages of Europa. Never mind even trying to dream about winning the Europa. I think that we should keep our feet firmly planted on the ground with this one. And Martin O'Neill would tell you himself, let's not get too ahead of yourself, because we've got a massive job in hand at the moment. Because as it stands tonight, when Martin O'Neill goes back into training tomorrow morning, he will be managing a club that are sitting third in the SPFL at the halfway point of the season. It's just unbelievable. I can't even remember what year it would have been the last time that at the halfway point of the season we were sitting in third position in the SPFL. I'm sure someone will go and check back the history books because it would have been that long. It wasn't any time in the recent history of Celtic Football Club, put it this way. So we are in unfamiliar territory as fans. And should we forget about Europe? The league and the cup are more important. Yeah, I think we mentioned I would say you're right with that one. I think Martin O'Neill was only talking about long-term matches. Kelechi is back this month. I hope he is, but he's not the answer. Back when this month, look at the games that we've got. We need ready-made players now. By the end of the month, the end of January, will be too late for Ignacio. Kelechi Ignacio, it will be too late. I mean, if you're looking for him for the Bologna game, can he come in and get match fit and be physically prepared and not have a reoccurrence of his hamstring injury in the Bologna game, 2 minutes into the game. We really need players in within the next 10 days before we get to Falkirk, because you want any striker that we bring into the club, you want to try and give them at least 2 games. And I know that this is wishful thinking, and it's not the way that Celtic do it. Celtic will end up bringing someone in pretty much after the Utrecht game. It was after it would have been the Bologna game, which was the Aston Villa game, which was the second last game of the Champions League last season. It was the very next day that we sold Kyogo Furiashi. We need players in now. We need players, strikers, we need defenders, and hopefully Martin O'Neill and the backroom staff are going to have some late night discussions. And people are asking, has there been any talk about the Green Brigade getting back in? I think that Martin O'Neill will be wanting to worry about other things, and I think that he'll be making sure that the board are too busy concentrating on football matters to try and get into conversations with fans. It's not the week for fans to take the forefront and for fans to be a priority. I'm sorry. This week is all about the club being very, very selfish and not speaking to fans, because the club should be far too busy bringing in potential players, being in negotiations with other teams. Martin O'Neill says that he's going to have to go and see players with his own eyes for a full 90 minutes, not just whatever on a DVD. It's not ideal. Yes, we all want the fans back in, but I think we need to give the club a little bit of leeway this week. That's the reality. If we want Martin O'Neill to be successful, we need to just take a little back step and not expect some kind of statement tomorrow that the Green Brigade are back in. We would love it and it would be brilliant. But I think that the club have got more important things on their hands than worrying about supporters coming in and at the ground. You know, that type of thing could be a 10-minute conversation, tick box, yeah, let them back in, send out the emails, activate their tickets, and then that's it. It's not something that needs to take up a lot of Celtic time this week, because Martin O'Neill needs players in. He needs to address the squad. He knows what's needed. Sean Maloney knows what's needed. Fozzie has been at the club. He's only been away for about 33 days. There's nothing much changed. And McManus is still at the club anyway. So let's get behind the players and the manager. Martin O'Neill will have 29 million if he wants. I don't think he'll get 25 million. Hearts have been lucky this season with injuries. They've only had 3 points in front. We play Martin's way and we are champions. We will win this league comfortably. Alistair Johnston's back at the end of March, according to Martin O'Neill. Tisdale brought in this international Chelsea scout. What's he bringing to the table? Mate, I did a video on this and it wasn't Tisdale that brought him in. I think he was brought in to ultimately take over Tisdale's job. But I did do I did a video about this guy and about what he's done and his LinkedIn and everything, so you can check that video. It's on the channel. It was only a few days ago. Alistair Johnston's March, yes he is that. We desperately need a striker who can handle himself, score goals, but it's hard to find. Exactly. I mean, people thinking that it's going to be easy to find a 30-goal striker. It's difficult, and the Huns have scored again. Great. Does anyone know if you can send a ticket to someone else if they're still able to download them Apple Wallet? No idea. Get the Grumpy Greek back? No. Martin O'Neill would never put up with the Grumpy Greek, and especially a player that took to social media to talk about his disgruntlement and put out little sly things. People forget people are calling back to bring back the Grumpy Greek, bring back Kyogo. Players that did things at Celtic no one at Celtic will have forgotten, you know. But as fans, we seem to think that we know better than the um, the management team and the scouts, even though that we're putting full trust in this management team. Any loans we get, we need loans as an option. Yeah, I think that GG was pushed. It was that. Um, I am going to jump through the comments because I'm expecting a Hun implosion any minute. A 30 goal striker would be hard to find, but you're never going to find. You're never going to find a 30 goal striker. You know, you're talking about trying to find a Lee Griffiths. We would have to pay between 5 and 10 million, and that's going to a lower league. If you go down to England, you're not going to get a 30 goal striker anywhere. I mean, we sold Adam Ida, who scored 29 goals for Celtic in a season and a half, and people didn't like him, didn't want him at the club, thought he was rubbish. That's all I'm saying. You know, we need a 30 goal striker, and we sold him at a loss, an absolute loss. Anyway, and I've watched Kyogo. He's been poor. He's been a bench warmer. There's no chance. Huns will drop points at Sunday Pittodrie. They always do. Well, I'm sorry to say, but they are not dropping points tonight. Griffiths cost us 1 million. Yeah, that was because Hibs didn't realise what they had at the time. I'm going to finish up as that mob are winning 2-0. Celtic are confirmed as third place in the SBF. I am not finishing on that sad fucking note of a down fucking dirty orange. If we get Kieran Bowie for Hibs, how much would Kieran Bowie from Hibs cost Celtic? And would Hibernian ultimately sell Kieran Bowie? I mean, when you look at the two wingers that we can bring in, both of them can play in the sort of behind a striker. This guy, Ignacio Jesus. It's not Jesus, it's Jesus. Ignacio Jesus. He can play right wing, he can play left wing, and through the middle. And I think that Martin O'Neill knows that we need somebody to play through the middle because the player that we have got in that position doesn't turn it on enough. And then when you look at the Jocelin Tabai player, he plays on the right also, but he can play as a second striker or he can play as an attacking midfield player. Maybe he's the one that's been brought in to be the striker. Get Troy Parrott, if only. If only. I mean, that's a player that we would love to have at Celtic. But really, we should have bought him. He was in the exact same team as Cameron Carter-Vickers at the time. And why, oh, why we didn't bring him in the same time as we brought in Cameron Carter-Vickers, because we would have got him for peanuts in the realms of strikers. But I think that he would cost us far too much money, and we are not going to be spending 10-15 million pounds on one player. Anyway, let me just do a little double update. It's been quite lively tonight, 3,500. That's not bad for a Tuesday night when it's a bit of a slow news night. All the excitement in Celtic, all the negativity has now gone. Thank goodness. All we can do is look forward. Transfer window wise, do not expect big money signings. Martin O'Neill knows that he will have to bring in squad players, and squad players is what we need badly. Will they be good? Will they be better? Martin O'Neill says he doesn't know. They might not be much better than what we've already got, but we need players in because the squad is far too small. We will sell Maeda for 10 million. Yes, we will. You're not going to get more than 10 million. Not a chance. Not a chance that you'll get more than 10 million. Any other questions in the chat? Let me just jump through some of these. No chance of us getting Parrot? No, not at all. We should have signed French Eddie in the summer. Look at his stats this season. I've never watched French Eddie, but did he not go for around about 6 million or something? I'm not too sure. I tend not to watch ex players, to be honest. I'm not interested in their career. Once they've left Celtic, don't care. No, we don't. We need quality as soon as possible. Brown Warrior. All I'm saying is we will go out and we will buy players to help the squad in this window. Martin O'Neill will try and bring in as much quality as we can, but we are not going to go and spend. What is your price on quality? What is your price? What is your assumed determined price tag on quality? Because we've spent 1.5 million on a player that was quality, that was an academy player, that came through the system at Fulham and then left Fulham because he didn't believe the way, he didn't want to fuck about in the B team. He was without a club for 6 months. He went to MK Dons with a clause in his contract that he would be sold for 1.5 million. Celtic followed that player and then got him for 1.5 million and then sold him for 25 million. That's quality. People saying, oh, here we go, bargain bucket time. It's where Celtic have found their best players. Lubo Moravcik cost virtually nothing. Henrik Larsson, 650 grand. Some of our best players have been bargain bucket time. Do not expect us to go out and spend big money on this transfer window because it is not going to happen. I'd love to get Angus Gunn. Really? He's a terrible. I heard the rumour of London. No, please not. God, no, not him. My other 6 million max. Better chance of getting John Parrott. We won't get much for any of the Ange era players now, apart from Alistair Johnson, perhaps. Alistair Johnson will be here for a few years yet. He won't be back up. I mean, Martin O'Neill said today that he won't be back until the end of March. All that Ali Johnson's doing then is trying to get fit, trying to get game time, not overexert himself and just make sure that he gets back into the World Cup team. He may not even get into the World Cup team, the fact that he's not played a lot of football this season. 6 million for a good quality striker in the SPFL. Is there a good quality striker that we could spend 6 million on? And will a club in the SPFL sell us this said striker from Hibs for 6 million? Need fresh players, a lot of desire to impress, succeed. Old players won't give us that, minus Jota. This is true. Callum Wilson on a free, interesting. They'd eat the Ivory Coast. 5 million quid for Balak Wisha. I'll take the bargains. Exactly. I think we're better off with bargains. Do you know what I mean? Having spent 5 million on him and then the millions on Tenecti. The only player that has been of value for money that came in the last transfer window will be our Swede, and the fact that he had a clause in his contract that Celtic could buy him for, what was it, 1.7 million, where he was valued only 6 months earlier. He was valued at between 5 and 6 million. So you've got to say, Ignacio Laquintana is the same agent as Sarachi. Oh, that's interesting, because I would love to get both players at the club full time. Viva la Gita Brigada. Oh God, they could just see it. They could just see. You can hear it. Somebody should ask to justify why Poozy has such a high price tag. Yet couldn't get a game under 3 managers. That's nothing to do with Celtic now. We didn't take up the option to buy him, and we didn't. Martin O'Neill won't play Balak Wisha. Well, that's probably why we're trying to get a couple of wingers in, because Martin O'Neill doesn't fancy him. Let's hope we do get this guy in the actual Bergrada. That's what he will get called. And then Jocelin Tabai. Maybe that is the reason that we are trying to get these two players in, because Martin O'Neill just goes, you know what, these guys that we've got at the club just aren't good enough. Martin O'Neill said in the press conference that new signings are up to him and the backroom staff, and Martin O'Neill we trust. There has just been an email dropped from the Celtic Fans Collective. Breaking news. Let's get me some of this this evening. I will get this read out live. So there has been an update from the Celtic Fans Collective. Hi all. Oh, fuck off. Get that screen. Hi all. Firstly, thank you to everyone who completed the survey in such short notice. We genuinely appreciate the level of engagement, depth, response that we received. Prior to yesterday's afternoon from Celtic FC, the overwhelming majority of supporters who contacted us supported immediate boycott of upcoming match against Dundee United. However, it would be unrealistic to ignore the this is breaking news, Celtic fans, this is breaking news. However, it would be unrealistic to ignore the developments of the last 24 hours, including the dismissal of Wilfred Nancy, the reappointment of Martin O'Neill. Naturally, we hope that Martin can once again galvanise the club and push and retain the title. That said, it must be acknowledged that the executive team responsible for the disastrous appointments of Nancy Paul Tisdale remain in place. The steering committee last night met to discuss the way forward in light of the changing landscape. An agreement was reached to issue an open letter to Brian Wilson attached, calling on him to meet representatives of the Celtic Fans Collective in the spirit of unity and reconciliation that him himself has publicly advocated. The purpose of this letter is to return to the core questions raised in September, whilst demanding the reinstatement of the Green Brigade, the end of a ban of fan media, and the resignation of Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay, whom we hold no confidence. As the chair, responsibility now rests with Brian Wilson to hold these executives to account and to respond and engage with supporters. Should he fail to do so, the collective will reconvene to determine the next phase of protest campaign. With Not Another Penny campaign scheduled for review at the end of January, we propose to meet the wider collective at that time. This also gives Brian Wilson an opportunity to respond to our letter and to meet with representatives. Arrangements. Next collective meeting will be confirmed as soon as possible. We look forward to your attendance. Now, the open letter from the Celtic Fans Collective to Brian Wilson. This is the letter from Brian Wilson to the collective to Brian Wilson. On the 9th of September, following a summer transfer window and a fifth Champions League qualification, and 420 Celtic supporters organisations, buses, supporters clubs, fan media outlets signed a joint open letter to address to the Celtic board. The letter outlined the key areas of concern around 7 questions. The letter represented the views of tens of thousands of Celtic supporters who wanted greater clarity around the club's footballing strategy and modernisation plans, meaningful accountability for repeated failures, and significant improvement on how the club engages and treats its supporters. Following the formation of the Celtic Fans Collective and the commencement of a series of protests highlighting the Celtic board's failure to respond to those concerns. A meeting was arranged between the Celtic representatives of the Celtic support and executive members of the board. This meeting yielded no progress in addressing the legitimate concerns of the fan base. What I got told, it was 3 hours of just absolute bullshit. And the months that have followed, things have gone from bad to worse. Oh, Jesus. Really? It's like that series of Friends. Let me just. I mean, it is. It does go on. I will post this in the community tab. So if you want to go and read it, I'll post it in the community tab. I'll post it in the community tab now, because I think that the one that the one that was written by the Celtic Supporters Association was a little bit better, to be honest. But the collective are saying, where is it? Celtic Football Club's strategy must be modernised, communicated with clarity and regularity to its supporters. Additionally, professional recruitment process need to be developed with a commitment to making merited-based appointments to strategic roles. No longer can jobs be filled through personal relationship, family. Oh, fucking Jesus. There must be commitment to accountability and transparency, the directors, etc., etc., etc. The club should reinstate the Green Brigade, the fan advisory boards, improve communications. We're keen to get right behind the manager and the players, given the importance of the months to come. However, it's worth noting that 142 active supporters buses contacted us over the weekend, urging the steering group to call for a boycott of up-and-coming home match. Fan anger has reached breaking point. There will not be a boycott. I think that this letter, yeah, I'll put it up in the comments, and I do think that the Celtic Fans Collective have overworded this and dragged it out a bit, where it was quite to the point from the Celtic Supporters Association. But there won't be any boycott of the game this weekend. It's unbelievable to think that, I mean, it's not going to happen. The club should reinstate the Green Brigade, revoke fan media ban, engage proactively with supporters, organisations and independent supporters to rebuild trust in the medium term. I think that whilst all this is good, we do need to give the we do need to give Kieran's got it in one. Kieran, you got it in one. Right, I am going to put this up in the community tab. It is visit the. Oh, that's a different one. Open letter to Celtic FC. Okay, I'm just finishing up the now anyway. Let me just double check that link works. Go to site. Google Workspace. Oh, wait a minute. That's giving you the full letter. Let me download that. Oh, is that? That's because it's in my. Someone can go on to. Let's come through Google Mail. Nah, I'll need to figure it out a different way. What I'll do is. Let's see if I can. I'll try and figure it out. Anyway, that's me done and dusted for the. Wait for them to film. Yeah, exactly. Right, that's me done and dusted for this evening. Thank you to everyone that has been on the channel tonight. It's been quite a fantastic one. The breaking news is that the Celtic Fans Collective have decided not to go ahead with any boycott of games this weekend. They could not ignore the developments of the last 24 hours, including the dismissal of Wilfred Nancy, the reappointment of Martin O'Neill. They want to galvanise the club going forward. They are putting out an open letter, and it's as I said today. Hopefully, you'll send me what? 2 seconds. What? I have no idea what that is on that I've just seen. Balak Wisher cost them their place in the quarterfinals. They're generally not on a Balak Wisher. Great. Let me just see if I could send you that. But does that come up with my? It just opens up in my mail. Right. Anyway, that's me done and dusted. Have a fantastic evening, Celtic fans all around the world. I'll try and get the full copy of that letter up onto, and you could sit and read it. It will take forever, but anyway, that's us done and dusted.